Parish Council meeting to order. The date is August 23rd, 2017. The time is 6 p.m. If we can stand for the prayer and pledge, Mr. Eugene.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God, guide us tonight. Create an atmosphere of unity. Protect us from the oncoming storm, which we are about to get. Protect our citizens, protect our troops, and bless this parish of ours, of Iberia. We pray in your name. Amen.
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 Mr. Dugas.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Tommy Pollard. Here. Michael Landry. Tommy Landry. Here. Lloyd Brown. Warren Goshasane.
Here.
Natalie Broussard.
Here.
Paul Landry. Here. Ricky Gonsalves. Joe Dudas.
Here.
Eugene Olivier.
Here.
Brian Napier.
Here.
Berwick Francis. Marty Trahan.
Here.
Chad Montreal.
Here.
I did hear from Mr. Ricky Gonsalves, who's in the fields trying to get the beans harvest before the storm that's coming in. Hopefully some of the other ones will be here shortly. We'll move on to public comments. I need a motion to go into public session. Moved by Mr. Goshasane, second by Mr. Pollard. Roll call. Just 1 second. It's not lighting up. That motion carries. Let the record reflect Mr. Michael Landry's present. All right, we'll move to comments from the general public on non-agenda items. First, we have Mr. Alan Bruglet. I messed that up, I'm sure. Huh? To the podium, please.
I just wanted to address you guys in regards to the storm that's coming. I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now what it's going to do and where it's going to go, but I'm the college and career pastor at Christian Life Center in Lafayette, Louisiana. I have a group of young people and college and career kids that are interested in helping wherever they can and whatever you guys need. So I just wanted to leave a name and a phone number with you guys so that you can contact me. We can do everything from fill sandbags so that the residents don't have to and they can just come by and pick them up to actual relief work, shuttling people to some of the shelters. So if y'all want to take my name and number and wherever you guys need us, we'll be ready and give it to you. Okay, I'll give it to her on the way out. And if you guys need anything, just give us a call. We got a group of about 10 to 12 young people ready to help. So.
Mr. Allen, just for the record, go ahead and say your name. You don't. I have your number. You don't have to put that down.
Yeah, Alan Bruyette.
All right. And I got the call last night that you were offering your help, and
Sure.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. My message that I don't know if it got back to you last night was pray for us right now that we do not have the effects of this storm.
Sure.
And hopefully we don't need to call you, but we definitely will appreciate the volunteer work.
I'm a resident here. I live right off of Main Street, so I'm close, real close.
Thank you.
Mr. Richard?
Thank you so much. We actually have a list of people that have volunteered so far, so go ahead and get your name and number.
Sure will.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
And you would be ready to start like tomorrow if we need you?
Yes, we should be up by tomorrow afternoon. Yes, I've got a couple of kids in school, and I can pretty much be ready at any time, but we can start tomorrow, yeah.
And what's the name of the organization?
Christian Life Center. We're a church on Bear Rock School Road in Lafayette.
Thank you so much.
All right,
I'll
thanks.
call you tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
We have everything.
You have his number too?
Yes,
Good.
we have everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to comments from the general public on agenda items. I do have two speaker participation forms. If you've not submitted one yet, go ahead and fill that out if you want to speak while these persons are speaking. First, we will have Mr. Ray Freeman regarding summary number 153.
Thank you for listening to me tonight. I have summary number 153. I just ask for your support for summary number 153, which is to place the ballot issue for a tax for the levy district on the ballot. And I do want to cover just a couple of real quick things that were questioned. One thing has to do with enterprise zones. There has been some noise moving through the parish saying that enterprise zones take people in the enterprise zone or who participate in that do not have to pay property tax, and so that they wouldn't be paying this particular tax. But enterprise zones only affect sales and use tax, so they do not affect property tax. The other thing that I want to say is that the only thing that I know of that does affect property tax is the Restoration Tax Abatement Program. Now, both of these programs are from the Louisiana Economic Development of the state, and the Restoration Tax Abatement Program, what that does is that if a business owns a building and they renovate it or improve it, then they can submit an application, and if it's approved, then they don't pay property tax on the improvements for a 10-year period. However, the initial building, that doesn't change. They still participate the same way they always did. The third item was a question about the potential to change language in the call as it's been submitted. And according to the bonding attorney that put the information together, that we've kind of passed the deadlines to change those calls. If we change that call, it can't make it to the November 18th ballot. So that kind of covers all of the things that I've heard as of recent. But, you know, I just ask for your support, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ray. Next, we have Mr. Chris Burton with the Chafalaya Trace Commission.
Yes, my name's Chris Burton. I'm on the Chafalaya Trace Commission, which is the managing entity of the Chafalaya National Heritage Area. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. You've seen the signs at the parish lines that recently, they've been up a few years. It's a 14 parish area that surrounds the Chafalaya Basin. We are in the Teche Corridor, us, St. Landry, Lafayette, and St. Martin. I've been on the commission since 2011. I've enjoyed it. It's been an honor to serve, and I appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve. And if there's any questions,
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
thank you very much.
Thank you for your service, and you're willing to continue. Next, we have Mr. Randy Gonsalon regarding the Iberia Parish Airport Authority.
Randy Gonsalon, 408 Estate Drive. Thank you, Madam Chairman. In the next few months, I'll be coming up to my term on my 5-year term. I was serving as a commissioner at the Airport Authority office, and got on board in February of 2013. I think it was that month that they had a vote on whether they were going to keep the commission or not, and I asked that give us a little bit more time, and y'all did, or the previous administration. Some of the individuals are still here, not previous administration, previous councilman. But anyway, we've made a lot of gains. We're running pretty good on our expansion programs, short of money just like everybody else, but everything's been approved by FAA and DOTD on some of our projects. I think I gave a presentation about a year and a half ago showing you where all the money was. But anyway, the reappointment comes up in just a few more weeks for y'all to vote on that, and I ask for y'all support. Again, it's the Airport Authority Commission, and I appreciate y'all appointing me for the first 5 years and hope y'all do it again. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Gonsalas. That's all the requests we have for public comments. I need a motion to close public. I have a motion by Mr. Goshasan, a second by Mr. Olivier. Roll call. That motion carries. Mr. Landry, you don't want to close public comments? Let the record reflect he voted yes. Next, we'll move on to reports, finance, administrative actions. There are none. Reports, parish and other governmental agencies, none. Public Works reports. Public Works Department report for closed work orders dated July 31st to August 4th and August 7th through the 11th of 2017 was included in our packets. The Public Works Department report for open work orders dated August 15th, 2017 was completed in our packets. Special business, none. Council member announcements. Mr. Dugas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we had our Save Our Lake cleanup bash this past weekend. Would like to thank Mr. Warren Goshasan, Mr. Brian Napier for coming there and contributing. I'd like to thank the parish president for providing some much-needed services. And I'd like to thank Herman Broussard. He did an outstanding job. He came out there and spent the day with us. Thank you, Herman. Thank you.
Mr. Napier?
I want to echo what Mr. Dugas said. It was a fantastic time Saturday morning out on the lake to see, and also the sheriff's department was out there with their boats, and they picked up and all the other boats picked up a whole lot of trash and stuff that you wouldn't believe would be on the waterway that came in. But hats off again to Herman and all of Public Works that came out with a lot of equipment, and those guys did a fantastic job. And through the leadership with our parish president, I want to thank y'all and Herman and all you guys. Please pass the word. It was good to see Public Works out there in such a full force, and we looked like we knew what we were doing out there. Yeah, at least y'all did. Y'all made us look good. Thank you.
Mr. Goshasan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo exactly what both of the gentlemen said, but just to give you a more further detail, Mr. Napier stayed by the food extremely amount of time while most of us were working. So, no, but I want to thank Joe Dugas for inviting me. I mean, it was a pleasure to see the community come together to help improve the lake's quality. Madam Chair, I was able to have the privilege last week to attend the Acadiana Fairgrounds Commission meeting. It seems that they've are experiencing a more volume as far as shows coming up in 2018. So it was encouraging to hear that. There are some nicks that they need to work out, but it was encouraging to hear that the administration and them are trying to work things out as we are going into the 2018 deal. I think their numbers were down a little bit as far as the tax, but it seemed like they were cutting back some things to make it I guess comfortable for them to get into 2018. Thank you.
Mr. Paul Landry?
Yes, yesterday afternoon I attended the sewage board meeting, and I'm happy to report things are looking a lot better over there. Funds are increasing, and they're actually starting to put together some plans for the advancement of the sewer system. And then I came and attended the ad hoc committee, and it seems like our chairperson has gotten them through the final page, and she'll start the editing process, and then they'll make their decisions and be bringing things to us. So that's entering toward its final phase. That's it.
Any other council members attended any meetings that they want to give a report on? The Charter Commission Committee has met this week and last week. So we met twice since the last council meeting. We have made our way through the full charter, and we'll be going back to finalize the recommended changes that we'll be making. Also, the Acadiana Fairgrounds Commission might not get this out to the general public, but if anybody wants to run out to the circus, they have a circus out there tonight, right now, with 2 live elephants, from what I understand. So look forward to attending some of those events. Having no other request, we will move to parish president announcements.
Okay, the painting and waterproofing of the courthouse, the bids were received, and the project has been awarded to the lowest bidder. The contract should be executed next week, and the work is expected to begin in September. Hopefully, we'll be finished by the end of the year, and I'm looking forward to that. Harvey has strengthened into a tropical depression, and it will likely become a tropical storm later tonight or tomorrow. Harvey could become a Category 1 hurricane, hitting landfall in south central Texas by late Friday. The winds are expected to be anywhere from 20 to 30 miles per hour in the coastal water area on Friday, with gusts in 40 miles per hour range. As of now, Berry Parish government is working with all of our agencies and associates. Our next meeting is going to be tomorrow morning at 10:30. I would just like to say to the people of my Berry Parish, please start to prepare in case you have to evacuate your property. And keep in mind, the worst case scenario of this storm surge combined with heavy extended rains means we could face the possibility of flooding as bad as we experienced in August, or even worse. We will continue to share the information as we get it and put it on our Berry Parish website, and also the Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness 911 Facebook, and I'll keep everyone abreast as we get information. So with that said, that's it for the parish president's announcement tonight. We look like we're going to have a pretty long weekend.
And Mr. Richard, you have already made the sandbags available at all of the fire stations. I
Yes.
think we've published as much on social media
Yes.
that we can. It's also listed on our website, but that was available starting yesterday.
Yeah, at all
So-
of the same locations that we normally have. We have sand and sandbags ready. We actually have some companies and agencies that contact us already to volunteer their services, such as the one that you just heard. We already have people calling in with boats. We're going to be a little bit more organized this time, because when someone calls, we have a list, a database that Aquanetta is putting together for the type of services that we may need. I've been in contact with other parish presidents throughout the region. We have water from the Catawba that's no longer being pumped into the Bayou Teche. Hopefully, we're going to lower the Bayou, the Teche like we have it right now. So things are, we're moving along pretty well. We hope not to get anything, but if we do, we're going to be as prepared as we possibly can be.
I've also been in touch with CERT as well as you,
Yes.
and they are ready. And
ready.
if a shelter needs to be activated, we're ready to activate a shelter as
Absolutely.
well. So,
And you and I are going to get together early in the morning, and I'll tell you some of this other stuff that we're doing with CPRA, and we'll talk later.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting us as prepared as we can be for the storm. Next is the consent agenda items for public hearing and adoption. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the council wants removed from that agenda? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items. I have a motion by Mr. Gosselin, a second by Mr. Olivier. Any discussion? And this is going to be on the minutes of July 12th, 2017. The condolences to the family of Mr. William Billy Patu III, and condolences to the family of Mr. Edward Robert Guidry, who is the father-in-law of Scott Saunier, as well as the resolution for substantial completion to the water system improvement projects on Jefferson Island Road and from Norris Road to Jefferson Island Road Elementary School, and substantial completion to the Teche Lake Canal Road, a realignment and shoreline repair project. Having no requests for comments, roll call. No, Ricky's going. That's it. That motion carries. It was showing 13. So we want the record to reflect that Mr. Tommy Landry voted yes. All right. Moving on to ordinance introduced for public hearing and adoption, summary number 4844, introduced by Natalie Broussard, District 6, an ordinance rescinding ordinance number 2017-034823, adopted March 22nd, 2017, which proposed an amendment to Article 2, Section 2-04C of the Iberia Parish Home Rule Charter entitled Vacancies, as said item will be reviewed by the Charter Ad Hoc Committee for recommendation to the voters of Iberia Parish at a future election. I need a motion. I have a motion by Mr. Paul Landry, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Landry, do you have any comments or any comments? Having no requests, roll call. That motion carries. Summary number 4845, introduced by Natalie Broussard, District 6, an ordinance rescinding ordinance number 2017-034826, adopted May 10th, 2017, which proposed an amendment to Article 3, Section 3-07C of the Iberia Parish Home Rule Charter entitled Vacancies. The said item will be reviewed by the Charter Ad Hoc Committee for recommendation to the voters of Iberia Parish at a future election. I need a motion. Moved by Mr. Landry, second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Landry, you have any comments? No discussion. Having no other request, roll call. That motion carries. Summary number 4846, introduced by Zoning Commission, an ordinance denying a request for special use conditional use permits for the property of Miss Rebecca Prudhomme located at 3917 East Old Spanish Trail, District 11, in order to allow a 4,000 square foot commercial building within a mixed residential R2 zoned area. All is reviewed and recommended by the Iberia Parish Zoning Commission. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Mr. Paul Landry, a second by Mr. Dugas. Mr. Landry, you have the floor.
No discussion.
All right. Having no other request for comment, roll call. That motion carries. Resolutions introduced for public hearing and adoption, summary number 153, introduced by Marty Trahan, District 13. A resolution approving the holding of an election in the Iberia Parish Levy Hurricane and Conservation District, State of Louisiana, on Saturday, November 18th, 2017, to authorize the levy of a special tax therein, with said election to be funded from the election expense line item. I have a motion by Mr. Trahan, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Trahan, you have the floor.
Ready to vote?
No discussion? All right. Mr. Brown?
Yes, I have a discussion. I just want to make it clear that I voted against the levy, but I just want everybody to know that I'm in favor of the levy. I'm just opposing the process that we're going through to get it here. In 2013, I voted for the levy. I voted for the levy for the millage, and I also voted to have the sales tax. And the funding, I voted for that also. That was $54,000. I heard some of the same things I'm hearing now, is that there's money out there and we need money to generate, to build this levee. And I just don't see where 5 mills gonna be enough to build this levee. Now, what I would like to know is, are we gonna see another tax from the levee people? That's my problem.
You finished, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Anybody can answer that or want to?
Mr. Goshasow?
Did he want to ask that question to Mr. Freeman before I take? Okay, you want me to just go, or? I don't know if he was asking a question to the gym.
Mr. Freeman?
At this time, there are no plans to move forward with another tax. However, I can't tell you that will never happen. You know, I'm being honest. I know what our plans are right now, and I know where we're headed. You know, we don't know what tomorrow brings, and I don't have a crystal ball. You know, but I know that we're working hard to get it done within the confines of what we currently have and what we're asking for.
And the money that we're looking for, like I said, I've heard before that there was 5 pots of money that's not there now. So evidently you must be talking about some other money.
I don't know what you mean by 5 pots of money that's not there
BP
now.
money.
Well, BP money is still 5 pots of money.
Okay.
There's still 5 pots of money there, but those 5 pots were never in line. All 5 of them were never in line to help pay for the levee district. First of all, pot 1 could be used for that. That's a decision. That's a decision that has to be made by the parish council.
Which,
And then we have to actually make application to the federal government to allow us to spend it in that regard. Okay, which I've actually written that request, but I need parish council or administration to be able to even send it in. It's not my. I can't do that. I don't have the authority to do that. Let's say that. And until the parish council or the administration gives me the authority to forward it, I can't forward it. But I have it available. But you know, there has been some talk of hiring a company to actually make that application. So, but that being said, 1 is available. 2 has never been available for this, because 2 is more for restoration efforts dealing with habitat. 3 will also be available. That goes to the state, and we have to apply for that, and that's going to be a matching fund kind of dollar like CPRA talked about before. In other words, we have to put up some money to be able to get some money. Okay? 4 and 5 are 2 smaller pots that also don't go against coastal protection. They have some other items that they would go for, and it mostly leans toward restoration efforts.
so really,
And those are not decisions that are even made by local or even state government. It's a consortium of the 5 states involved that have to make those decisions on those other 3 pots.
so really, we really hope that. I mean, we not
1 and 2 has always been available and still always available. That didn't change, is what I'm telling you. There were never 5 pots available.
Well,
The-
the state not promising that we're gonna get that money, right? I mean, we're not sure that we're gonna get the money that you're talking about.
Pot 1,
Yeah.
Iberia Parish government has control of that.
You're not-
Y'all are the ones that can make it sure.
But
I
y'all-
can't make that. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. I'm kind of waiting on y'all decision.
Right, I understand, but.
Pot 3 is something we have to apply for, just like any other parish.
Okay, you say we have to make the decision on what's gonna happen.
On part one.
But I think we've already talked about that. You're not getting that money. We're gonna handle that.
Well, actually, in some past, and this takes us way into the weeds, but in some past decisions by this council, the council has decided to use a portion of that money for one of the projects, but we still have to apply for it. And we have to, it's called the multi-year implementation process. And so you have to do an MYIP, which is multi-year implementation process, to the Treasury Department to be able to spend the dollars that they've already promised to you. And part of that, this council, past councils, have decided that a portion of that would go toward the Delcom Avery project.
Yeah, well, I know.
And so, but we can't actually move it toward the Delcom Avery project until we do that other exercise in submitting that application.
And how much will that election cost?
The election,
Yeah.
Secretary of State said approximately $20,000.
And the first election was 54, right?
I wasn't involved to that degree in the
It was in
first election, so I don't
2013.
know.
April the 6th.
I don't know the answer to that.
But
If you know it, then,
Yeah,
you
you're
know.
all familiar that there was an election for the millage and also for tax.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the people did speak then.
Yes, sir. And so, we're just giving them another opportunity.
You're giving them another chance.
That's correct. Another opportunity
So it
to,
would be wrong to
they-
say, let's let the people speak without saying again, or another chance or something to that point. Not like this is the first time that it's for them and they want to get a chance at it, is what I'm saying. They had a chance already, but you want to give them another chance.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure.
Mr. Brown, you done?
I'm done.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Gosherson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Freeman, I have a couple of questions for you also. Just, the pumps have been a big issue that I've gotten several calls on in the last couple of days. Can you go in more in depth with the pumps? Who will activate it? Who has that control? Is it self-activated? Like you can push it from a button, or has to be someone that will go on location? And who's going to determine that?
That'll be determined by a standard operating procedure that will be, which is not written yet because we don't have anything built yet. As the systems are built, we will write standard operating procedures to determine when should they be opened, how long should they, or when should they be turned on, when should the gates be closed, how long they should be closed, and how long the pump should be on. A lot of that decision-making process is, one, you map it out in a standard operating procedure that you may start at point A, or you may start at point B, or you may start at point C. It's not a definite, because some of those decisions, like we sat in the 4:30 this afternoon in the emergency management office and talked about what's going on with this current storm, then we want to know how is a particular storm affecting us, and there are right times to make those decisions. But the levee district sits at that table and is involved in all of those discussions now. Our part is very minuscule because we don't have systems in place to be able to operate. In the future, when we will have systems in place to operate, then when we're sitting at that table at the 4:30 and the 10:30 in the morning meetings with emergency management, then we will decide and make some of those decisions as to what should be opened when, depending on where is the surge coming from. Is it coming from the west? Is it coming from the east? Which, and make those decisions appropriately. But there will be a map that tells you when you should be considering those things.
So I want to just make sure.
And
dry
part of
cut-
that is CPRA helps us to formulate that map also.
I want to make sure your decision that you just said is clear and cut. You said that the decision's going to come from the levee district?
It comes from the levee district, but it's in coordination with all of the other emergency management efforts that are going on.
I have a concern with that because how often does the levee district meet, Mr.
Well,
Freeman?
It's not that we're gonna have a board meeting to make that decision. Levy district's
So
gonna
it's
give
gonna
the
come from the
authority
administrative
to.
side of the levy
It's gonna
district?
give,
Okay,
the board is
what-
gonna give the authority to that administrator.
Okay, so I want to just make sure, when those decisions are made, the administration is going to be a part of those decision makings, correct?
Absolutely.
Because, I
Absolutely.
mean, obviously, y'all sitting in the same meeting, I would like for that to be some form of duplicity to continue to carry over, because, you know, me and Marty have the same issues on Armico. If we're able to pre-pump some of that water out, we could prevent, you know, some of the floods that we do have back there. And I'm not saying it's gonna solve all of our issues, but these are expressions that are coming from out of our districts to make sure that those things are held accountable pre-pumping. And I want to make sure that on the record that y'all working together on that to do that.
Absolutely, and from the standpoint of participating in those emergency management meetings,
Okay.
anytime there's anything that have come up, whether it was a storm in the Gulf or the considerations that we had previously, whether or not we were going to open the Morganza floodgates and any of those things. The levy district has always been present in the room with the parish president and with the
Okay.
with the emergency management Prescott Marshall, with all of those people who are normally in the room.
And my last issue that's come up the last couple of days is about the clarification in the language as far as, this is a tax, correct, Mr. Freeman?
That's correct.
You're
It
gonna
is.
go to the people, and ultimately, the people are gonna decide on the property tax.
That's
And
correct.
I've said this to
That's
you
absolutely
before, that
correct.
I disagree with the property tax, but I'm gonna allow the people in my district to vote if they want it or not. I mean, I'd rather it be a sales tax, but, I just wanted for the record that ultimately, the people of this parish will go and they'll make a vote on that tax, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Before we get too far, and I recognize any others, I want to bring up something. I think it's a good time to talk about, Mr. Richard, if you would help me out, because what he's talking about is these meetings, these emergency management meetings when we have a storm pending. And I think it's a good time to explain to people that twice a day,
Twice a day we have meetings, and you have to understand that there are many parishes in Louisiana that have levy boards and levy districts. So they're in communications with Roger, who's actually the person from the National Weather Service. And you have communications with all of them, you know, what they need to do in Morganza, what they need to do in Martin City, what needs to be done, what needs to be done in Terrebonne, and so on and so on. So
I
this is
just want to
something.
get the people understanding that what's going on is this is a conference call between all parishes that
Throughout
are
this-
involved
that's right.
with the national weather.
With the national weather, but what I'm saying is that, for the most part, any and every parish in the state could be involved in that call, even though it's not necessarily affecting them. But on the line, we have everyone from the could be the National Guards, it could be the Corps of Engineers, it could be FEMA, it could be the parish presidents, the levy districts, and the list just goes on and on and on. And we communicate as to what it is how this weather is gonna affect particular areas. And before you end that call, each agency or entity have an opportunity to talk about their concerns. So it may be something that may be hitting in New Orleans, for example, projected to affect New Orleans. Well, at that particular time, the levy district in the New Orleans area is gonna say, well, we're closing this, we're pumping this right now because we're trying to get the water out of this so we can actually have capacity to take on additional water or whatever. It's a very complex communications that we have twice a day, but everyone is involved. And Ray is exactly right, because he was in the one earlier at 4:30. So this is not something that's a secret. This is something that everyone that want to be involved in it, in government or agencies in Louisiana partake in.
And this is getting information from the federal level, the state level, the local levels. I mean,
Exactly.
in the room, physically listening on our side is representatives from parish government, representatives from
Sheriff
city
Department.
government, the sheriff's department, the fire departments, both fire departments.
And as it get closer, you start to bring in the National Guard,
Right,
and
you
the
st-
Department of Health and Hospital.
Red
and the
Cross
group-
was there,
Red Cross
CERT was there,
right.
Public Works was there. And I just want the people to know that how much goes into when the levy district has to make this decision.
Right,
It-
and
It's,
if-
it's, there's volumes of people giving information and input.
And if the levy district was to make a decision, for example, to close off something, and it wouldn't be under the advisement of the information that we're receiving, believe me, they would get some serious heat prior to doing that. So I'm pretty sure that no one from the levy district would just say, I'm going to close the gates in the commercial canal, or whatever the case is, or in the Delcom Avery area. It's a lot of communication goes into it. Is that good enough?
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Yeah, I thought it was a good opportunity to explain to
Yeah.
how this works. Mr. Dugas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brown asked the question about, is this going to be the only tax? I want to make reference to Terrebonne Parish. They came out with a 5 mil tax, and it barely passed. And they got to work doing the work, and then they came back and asked for a half-cent sales tax. And it passed with a little better margin. Then they came back and asked for a half-cent sales tax again, and it passed by 80%, because the people saw that they were taking ownership of this problem and attacking the problem. So they've got most of their levies built, and they didn't worry about what the federal government was going to do. And I say that because I'm not for the levy, against the levy. I live in the Chafalaya Basin Levy District. I would have to assume that levy has done its job, because I haven't flooded in my lifetime over there. So that levee's doing exactly what it's. So if the levee's needed in the coastal parishes and the people want, they need to get out and vote. And it's got to be, they got to be proactive and take ownership. If it's yes, it's yes. If it's no, it's no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dugas. Mr. Tommy Landry?
Yeah, right. Question I have is, and I hate to be a pessimist, what happens if this tax fails? The reason I'm asking is because I want people to understand, where do we go from here if we don't have the.
Let me give you one example. Back in 1975, there was a plan by a number of outdoorsmen, fishermen, that they were going to build and construct something along the intercoastal, and that never survived. It just didn't survive the political climate. It never got as far as we have gotten thus far to actually create a levy district. It just never survived. So there we are 42 years ago, and now we're still talking about the same problem, except that we can't build it at the intercoastal. One, because the cost would be too prohibitive. There's no way we could afford to be able to build that far out. But secondly, and maybe more importantly, is that you would probably never get it permitted to be able to be built out there. The laws have changed since then, so the permitting became much more difficult. So if this doesn't pass, and our levy district goes away, it ceases to exist, which is a very real possibility, then I envision that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to be looking at this same problem 40 years from now and trying to determine how they're going to save Highway 90, because that's where the coast will be. We'll have already lost that part of our parish. And, is that the right thing to send to our grandchildren? I don't think it is. I think we need to take the appropriate action.
You done, Mr. Landry? Mr. Traha?
Yes, I'm in support of this levy being passed, but also we're talking about it also will assist in our drainage projects, working coincide with one another. As Public Works Chairman, I see this working to a great deal of some of our drainage problems that we are having now, that will better assist, just like the Lewis Street project, People's Coulee. Maybe we can put in one deal and they can put in another, so with the whole thing, I think it's going to integrate to where we can have a drainage system that's working and clean throughout the years, that it's kept up. And I'm totally in support of this millage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trahan. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, just what Mr. Dugas said. First of all, Mr. Dugas, this parish's pockets is not big enough to do what they did, because they can't afford, we can't afford to pay $600 million. And the next thing that I'll say, and I'm gonna be through, that we did, this council did give the levy board in a March of $500,000. And did we get any? What did we get any money since then, Mr. Brown?
We have $920,000 that's coming from the state of Louisiana toward the Delcom Avery project. That is a match to some of those dollars. We have some work that they have recently completed and we have not signed off on because we're still studying the work that they've done, where they've spent, although in a two-parish area, St. Mary and Iberia, although Iberia was the lion's share of that project, CPRA has spent right at $1 million for that. Yes, Iberia Parish has benefited from it.
No, I think
In fact, if you can just let me finish, there will be, I believe later on this week, there's a meeting with CPRA to discuss exactly that, and some of that information can help with the drainage works that the administration has been working so hard to improve. So those things came as a direct effort of what the levy board has done. Not just me, but the entire board, because the board has had countless conversations with CPRA, with a number of engineers across the state, and we've just, I mean, you know, we've worked very hard to try to get a lot done with no real funding mechanism in place, not something that we could count on for tomorrow. And so I think it's important to recognize that we've done a lot with very, very little. And I really think that we can really start putting some projects on the ground if we have this
Yeah, but my
this
question
success.
was, what's the dollar that we have? Did we acquire any funds?
$920,000 towards the Delcom Avery project. We don't have those dollars in our hand. The state has promised to spend that on the Delcom Avery project.
So we have, out the $500,000, we got 900,000. That's what you're telling me. Okay.
And another $1 million on the other work that they just completed.
All right.
You know, that's
Okay.
it's a lot of money for, you know.
You done, Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Mr. Trahan?
Yes, fellow council members, I'm asking for y'all's support on this, not only to protect us from flooding and that, but for also the economic impact it's going to have on the port of keeping businesses there. We have invested in right at $400,000 with the port for the gas line, you know, in different items. We are investing in the parish, and I think this would just be an asset to keep businesses here and get businesses here. I'm asking all of y'all for y'all support on this, and I deeply would appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Trahan. Mr. Napier?
Let's not forget, we not voting here tonight for the levy. All we doing is whether we're gonna decide as a council to push this forward and let the people of Iberia Parish decide whether they want a levy or they don't. Mr. Brown, I understand that, I know there was a 2013 was the last election, so 4 years ago. But there are always, you know, taxes and things fail and then they bring them back. Things change. People die off. New people come in as voters. I don't see nothing wrong with bringing it back and let the levy board do their thing. It's a campaign. The people that are for the levy district that's trying to push it, they're gonna have to go there and sell it. The people that are against it, they're gonna have to do the same thing. They're gonna have to, give out enough information to the voters out there to let them know that they're against it. And let's let the people that we represent, let's let them decide. It's not for us 14 to decide. I'm in favor of letting the people decide. How I feel personally doesn't matter. I'm like Joel. I'm in the Chapala Levy District, so I can't vote anyway. But here tonight, I'm with Marty. Let's let the people decide, and then we all live with it. And you got a few months to put your stuff out there and give enough information, and we'll see where it takes us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Napier. Having no further requests for discussion, roll call. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Summary number 154, introduced by the parish president, a resolution certifying that the urgent need national objective is being met under the Community Block Grant Disaster Recovery Program through the parish implemented recovery program. Do I have a motion? A motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown, you have the floor?
No.
You waive discussion? No further
No.
requests to discuss? Roll call? That motion carries. Summary number 155, introduced by Lloyd Brown, District 4. A resolution amending the 2017 general fund budget in the amount of $8,395 to provide a carryover for the funding of a van for the Council on Aging. All is previously authorized by resolution number 2014-297, all to be funded from the personal services line item executive department function. Do I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Olivier? Mr. Brown, you have any discussion?
Yes, when it came up that the Council on Ages needed this van, I went in and talked with the parish president and asked him if he didn't mind funding this van rather than it coming out the general fund. Said the general fund was low, and he didn't hesitate to tell me, no, that's a good idea. And Larry, thank you for doing that. That's all I'm done.
Mr. Gosherstaff?
Ms. Kimberly, this is still coming out of the general fund, correct?
Coming from my salary.
Out of the general fund, correct? Okay, Mr. Richard, my only concern is once this one goes through, we have other agencies that need, what are we gonna do in the process of that?
Well, when I elected not to take all of my salary, Warren, what I was looking at doing this year, in case something would have come about where the administration, myself or Scott, or someone from the executive side would have needed to do some traveling and we didn't have enough money in the general fund, that portion of my salary would have paid for that. Mr. Brown came to me and he asked me what I thought about trying to help counseling on aging, and I basically told Mr. Brown that we're in August. I don't have a clue what's going to take place for the next 4 months of the year. But I think at that time we had some close to $20,000 remaining in that account. So I said, no problem, I'll do this, but I'm not going to do anything else with the remainder of my salary that I'm not taking until we get closer to the end of the year. Possibly at the end of the year, if we have remaining dollars left, I'll come and I'll tell the council that I want to divvy this up to different agencies, maybe on percentages of what they were receiving in the past. But I'm not exactly sure, Mr. Gosh was saying, what that number is going to be, because I'm not there yet. And you're correct. There may be other agencies that's going to come and ask for something, and if I can help them, I will. But we only have so much money that I have, left in my personal salary that I can help people with. But if you have 7 agencies that come, and if I have $10,000, for example, and we look at what they were receiving in the past and break that into a percentage, if we had $50,000 we was given in the past, and counseling on aging, well, not counseling on aging, and pick any agency was getting 8% of that 50, that's what I would do with what I had left. But I don't know what I have left, so I'm not making that decision right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reshort, Mr. Gosh.
You're very welcome.
Having no further requests, roll call. That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Reshort,
You're very
for
welcome.
what you've done to help Council on Aging.
Thank you.
Summary number 156, introduced by the Library Board, resolution amending the 2017 library fund budget in the total amount of $24,302 for various repairs and maintenance, communications, and architect fees, all to be funded from the fund balance previous year line items. I have a motion by Mr. Dugas, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Dugas, you have the floor.
No discussion.
Having no request, Mr. Pollard?
Yes, right here when they have for the maintenance, anyone here from the library where we can see what she's calling maintenance on the maintenance side
Can you answer?
over here on St. Peter's branch?
I think we can refer to Kim. I think they submitted a request. She can help us.
I actually had a phone conversation with her because it wasn't included in the documentation. It's roof repairs that were performed at the St. Peter's branch.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Well, the budget request is only an additional 2,000.
That was just the maintenance part of the 24,000. Some of it is for architect fees. Some is for communications. Do you want to maybe give them a better?
The architecture and engineering fees is associated with the Koto, the building that they were proposing to build earlier this year, and that's to finalize off, what they actually owed the architects on that particular contract. The communications, I think that location is Delcom, and you can see they had no line item budgeted for that, but obviously there's a telephone there, so that was just like overlooked. So they're just adding that line item in their budget, and then the 2,000 was the roof at the St. Peter branch.
All right. And does that answer everybody's questions? Roll call. That motion carries. Summary number 157, introduced by the parish president, a resolution amending the 2017 royalty fund budget in various amounts to provide carryover funding for capital outlay projects. I need a motion. I got a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Mr. Michael Landry. Mr. Landry, do you have any discussion, or are you waiving discussion?
Waiving discussion.
All right. Having no further requests for discussion, roll call. That motion carries. Resolution number 158, introduced by Warren P. Gosherson Jr., District 5, a resolution requesting Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development to evaluate the traffic control lights on Lewis Street at the off-ramp on U.S. Highway 90 for improvement. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Mr. Gosherson. Mr. Gosherson, you have the floor.
Just asking that we request DOTD to go back and look at the lights. I know some had brought up that they had already evaluated the light system, but a lot of things have changed. I mean, the economy's down, the volume of cars are down, but the light still stays. I guess the other night I counted 7 minutes before the light changed. So I'm just asking that it doesn't cost us any money just to have DOTD go out and do a traffic study at that light.
No further discussion, roll call. That motion carries. You got it. Need a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Olivier, second by Mr. Paul Landry. We will take a